before about a physicist who is a creationist who predicted the magnetic field, the strength of it for Uranus, the planet, when that spacecraft went past it. And he was right on with his prediction based on a young planetary system, young solar system.
So he based his equation on a young Earth, or a young universe.
Yeah, and he was absolutely right. And the evolutionary astronomers and physicists were thousands of times off in their prediction of the magnetic pull of that planet.
Because they were basing their equation
on a very old solar system and universe, correct.
So they have the formula of the magnetic field and age that forms an equation. And so you had this young universe guy took that formula with the young, and it came right on when that...
Right. I'm trying to think of his name. We showed a film of his a couple of years back, and it's up there, the program we did on it. It's up on our website. And
wasn't Humphreys, was it?
Yeah, thank you, Russell Humphreys. And that was the first time I heard about curved space, and he talked about how the starlight would get here a lot faster if space was curved, and that many physicists were coming to believe that space was curved. They believe it now. They know that space is curved based upon gravity and some other things. And so, but you don't hear about that. And there are tremendous physicists out there that have total problems with the Big Bang theory.
So they're just having a hard time letting go of this evolutionary teaching that's been ingrained in them.
Well, they get fired. The movie Expelled, you really need to see that if you didn't. The media tends to take a certain slant towards things, the liberal slant. Lots of studies have shown that. And the liberal slant tends to be against the Creator and a God that tells you there's certain morals in life and that there's certain things that are beneficial for us and certain things that aren't. They don't like that idea. I didn't like the idea.
It's a tremendous film, Mike, because what you have is a recognizable man, Ben Stein. Everybody has, I think, seen him in one form or another. And he's just on this incredible journey of truth.
Well, he's interviewing people. He lets them express it in their own ways. Of course,
he wants his questions answered.
A couple of them, Richard Dawkins was really annoyed because he didn't realize that Ben Stein was going to do a film like this, like he did with Expelled, and he opened up in ways that you've got to watch the film to see it. It's worth renting. It's tremendous.
Especially if you're a truth seeker.
Yeah, if you're not, don't bother. Because, if you're not a truth seeker, you're not going to get anywhere anyhow. But if you really want to know, and the neat thing about truth is, we're so much better off. You've talked about the joy that you and all of us experience when you know why you're here. Like you said, down deep, all of us have wondered as little kids, how did we get here? Is there any meaning to it all? But as we get older, we learn to suppress it because among certain circles, it's not cool to talk about certain things. You're not considered too with it if you do that. And Jesus said, that's one of the... What did Jesus say about that? About that being one of the main reasons why people are not going to find truth?
Yeah, well, John 5:44, how can you believe, you who receive honor one from another and not the honor that comes from God only? And if you're worried about what other people might think on your search for truth, then Jesus is saying you'll never be able to believe as long as you're worried about what someone else thinks.
Yep, if you put them ahead of God, their honor from them ahead of the honor that you're going to get from God.
Mike, and I think about me honoring my parents as a kindergartner, first grader, and wanting to please them. They're my mom and dad. They know everything. That's all I know as a kid. And all they tell me is listen to your teachers. They know the truth. And so I'm going to honor my parents. I'm going to honor the teachers. And whatever they say goes. But there came a point...
Well, the academic system was taken over slowly but surely from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, then really in the 60s it really got bad, and on.
And there's plenty of evidence for that. If you just seek it out on the computer, Google up, school history and...
Well, you'd have to, David Barton, you'd have to look at some of the work he's done relating to the changes in laws. It's not that simple to find, but email us if you got questions on that.
Yeah, well, it can be found, though.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. The divorce rate skyrocketed, crime skyrocketed in schools. I mean, kids would ride to school with rifles in the back of their trucks, out visibly on the gun racks, right, on the open trucks. You don't hear, there were no shootings back then of kids going into schools. They had rifles all over the place. It wasn't the fact that you could get to guns easily. It was the fact that do unto others as you'd have them do to you, because there's a God you're accountable to, and you're going to have to stand before him someday. And that, God has set everything up as a parallel to the universe, like you were talking about the father and having children. And if you mess up with your dad when you're 11 years old, and you do some stuff that he knows he's told you not to do it, and you're going to go do it, you're running the risk of, if you had a dad like most of us have had, of having a sore rear end for a while. And it's not any fun. And it's the same way in the universe. God is saying, hey, you're not going to be with me for eternity, plus your life is not going to turn out that great. Pharmacopoeia, drugs, is the word pharmacopoeia, sorcery in the Bible, so they use drugs for sorcery. People say, drugs can get you messed up, and just look at some of these people on methamphetamine. Look at, just being into it for a matter of months and a couple of years or whatever, and they aged like enormously. And God has set up his rules so that to benefit us. So, do you want to see this next section of film while we're waiting?
I do, Mike.
Let's take a look at another planet and see what's wrong with the Big Bang Theory and all the hypotheses relating to that you're being taught and told in the newspapers is fact. Well, let's see how much fact it really is based on.
Venus is not the closest planet to the Sun, but it is the hottest. Venus is completely covered with clouds. These clouds are mostly carbon dioxide. This traps the Sun's heat and causes a massive greenhouse effect. Temperatures on Venus approach 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Beneath its clouds, Venus looks like this. Venus is not a nice place to visit. If you were to go there and could somehow survive the heat, which you couldn't, and could somehow breathe the air, which you shouldn't, you'd immediately die anyway. You'd be crushed by the 90 atmospheres of pressure. At Venus's surface, the pressure is the same as being 3,000 feet deep under the ocean on Earth. Venus poses many unique challenges to evolution. Scientists used to call Venus our sister planet, which makes sense. After all, Venus is about the same size and mass as the Earth, and is made up of the same stuff. According to evolution, Venus was formed by the same processes as the Earth was, at the same time, in about the same place, and from the same materials. Therefore, Venus should be very similar to Earth, but in the last few decades, we've learned that Venus is actually very different. First of all, we've discovered that Venus's surface is not at all what evolutionists expected. Venus looks like the biblical description of Hades. There's no water anywhere. Instead, the entire planet is covered with lava flows. It does rain sometimes, but the rain isn't water, it's sulfuric acid. Also, Venus seems to have no tectonic plates. The Earth's crust is made up of many plates, but Venus's isn't. Venus has no magnetic field either, while the Earth does. If evolution says the planets are supposed to be so much alike, then why are they so different? For that matter, why doesn't Venus have a moon? Later in this video, we'll talk about how the Earth supposedly got its moon. For now, we'll ask, if both planets really did form at the same time, by the same processes, from the same materials, and at about the same place, why doesn't Venus have a moon too? Well, an evolutionary theory explains this. Supposedly, Venus did have a moon initially, as evolutionary models would expect, but then something happened. Yes, that's right. An asteroid came along and hit it, and destroyed Venus's moon. Where's the evidence for this, though? There isn't any. Only that if it didn't happen, Venus would pose problems for evolutionary theory. Venus poses other huge problems for evolution as well. For example, Venus's surface appears quite young. The entire